All right, folks, welcome in to the latest edition of the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. I am the somewhat capable host, TJ Rives. He is Mike Gill of the Mike Gill Show, weekday afternoons, the Sports Bash in Atlantic City on the ESPN affiliate. Mike, good to be back with you with lots of topics to cover. Again, we do this on Tuesday into Wednesday, where we take an extended look with our takes, the news, the newsmakers, the ratings, etc. How you feeling as we begin another pod here together talking sports media?
Feeling awesome, man. I know we had the sports equinox yesterday. It's not going to happen again. There won't be any more baseball on the same day as football. I don't know that there's going to be much more baseball after tonight anyway. Ratings, we'll get into those for the baseball. Baseball's been interesting, but this series a little lackluster so far in terms of, where it stands, but some great moments in the series.
There is no doubt. Again, thank you for finding us. You may be seeing the video show right now here through our social media, through my Twitter handle, Buck Sideline Guy, Mike's Twitter handle, Mike Gill Show, also on YouTube as well. And it's also in podcast form on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast feed. So if you're only hearing us, you can come see what the show looks like. Obviously, if you're seeing us, take us in your earbuds, as I like to say, Mike, or on your drive or whatever in your handheld device, and you can hear the Last Word on Sports Media podcast on Apple, Spreaker, Spotify. So we go over the topics. We go over kind of the current events, announcers, all the above. Let's start with the World Series, which, as I mentioned on our daily, Monday through Friday, we have the daily. This podcast serves as the daily on Tuesdays. On the Monday daily, I mentioned the ratings were tremendous for the first two games relative to recent years, where they were averaging around 14.5 million. Dramatic finish to both games 1 and 2 is going to help that. New York and LA markets is going to help that. And what a moment with the Freddie Freeman Grand Slam on Friday. Mike, what are your thoughts on the beginning of this World Series, the matchup? There's been drama in all three games with the Dodgers now leading 3-0. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Well, yeah, you got these two great markets that everybody was pumped up about. There was a lot of talk about the record ratings, and for two games, we don't have the ratings for last night. First two games, the 2024 World Series is averaging 14.5 million viewers across all networks. That's the best since 2017. It's actually getting better numbers in Japan. More people watching in Japan at 9 o'clock in the morning than are watching here in the States. I think 14.5 is strong. I did hear some people, thinking it could approach 20 million, and people interested to see if it's going to beat Monday Night Football last night. The fact is, you got a 3-0 series now. The networks are not happy about a 3-0 series. I don't care if L.A. is playing the Yankees or if the Yankees are playing the 28 Yankees. They want a competitive series, and you're not getting that right now. You got a great game. The Freeman Grand Slam, the walk-off there. We'll get that call from Joe Davis and get some thoughts on that. That's a great game. Unfortunately, no, you got a game in New York last night where Fat Joe was maybe the biggest draw the whole night. The Yankees didn't show up for the game. When you start bringing out a concert before the game starts, you're a little worried about getting some eyes, and I'm interested to see because you had two New York markets again last night, New York Giants, New York Yankees, and the Giants are done, and people might have been more interested in them last night than the baseball team that is now done.
Yeah, it looks like they're done too, but you bring up a great point. Did that detract a couple of million, because the NFL is king, of people watching the Giants in New York specifically for that game or not? And we should keep all of this in perspective. Again, baseball, you want to go way back. Baseball in the 80s, so much more mainstream, so fewer choices, would regularly have 30, 35 million people watching a World Series game. So when you talk about these ratings are the best since 2017, they are, but they're half of what they used to be 30 or 40 years ago. And for the biggest games, like a Game 6 or a Game 7, they would get 45, 50, 55 million people to watch, Mike Gill. Again, I understand far fewer choices, ABC, CBS, NBC, or public broadcasting. That was the choice. Knob on the TV. That was the choice back in the early 80s, the mid 80s, before the cable box became bigger, the satellite dish became bigger with all the choices. But it doesn't look like we're going to get the dramatic end here for a Game 6 or a Game 7 with the Dodgers and the Yankees. You mentioned the Joe Davis call. I think he and John Smoltz have been tremendous with it. Do you have the call of the Freddie Freeman grand slam? How wild was this? Let's listen.
Freeman hits the ball to right field. She is gone! Gibby, meet Freddie. Game 1 of the World Series.
What a call. If you're only hearing us, we're watching the video.
Yeah, that's the Fox video there. Thanks, Fox. There, and you heard, there's getting a lot of parallels between that and the Gibson, and he says, Gibby, meet Freddie.
Yep.
He had it ready to go.
Mike, 36 years ago, Kirk Gibson limped to the plate in the bottom of the ninth to homer off of Dennis Eckersley, and in the right field stands as a left-handed batter at Dodger Stadium. And 36 years later, with the bases loaded, Freddie Freeman in Dodger Stadium as a left-handed batter homers into the right field stands. It's crazy. And
now,
Joe Davis, Joe Davis hit that moment right on the head. He was great.
Some people have said that the 2 home runs happened at the exact same time of 8:37. Now, I've heard that contested, that it was actually 8:39 or 8:40, but it was within
they're both in game 1. They're both at Dodger Stadium. It's both a left-handed batter homering into the right field stands for a walk-off. That is just crazy.
It's
crazy
nuts.
how it works for Dodgers fans. And again, I thought Davis rose to the moment. How do you think he's been overall with John Smoltz and company? What do you think?
I like Joe Davis. I feel like he's got the big moments nailed. I think the two of them as a duo are very boring. During the game, I think when the moment's big, Joe Davis is great. He nails it. He's got the great inflection. I just don't. John Smoltz just doesn't sound like he's ever having a good time. Everything is so monotone, and
right.
You're trying to get into this game, and he's just not giving you much. Here comes the next pitch, and it's a really good slider here, and I think there's not a lot of excitement from Smoltz. This is the World Series. Now I think Davis is tremendous. When there's a big moment, he nails it. But the two of them together, I feel like,
But you're a bigger fan of the pregame coverage right now.
I have thought that the pregame
show on Fox.
Well, because, for instance, we've been talking a lot about Brady on this show and this podcast. I don't think Brady's standing up to the moment for his name and the stature of player. I think Derek Jeter's done a nice job coming in, and he really criticized Boone for taking Garrett Cole out with 88 pitches the other night. Like, why would you take this guy out? I loved hearing perspective from a Hall of Fame player that if he was playing shortstop, that I would not be happy that my ace pitcher's getting pulled out of this game. So kudos for Jeter. That's what I want to hear, Tom Brady. You're the best player I ever watched play. Tell me why this guy is not getting to your level. What does he need to do to get to your level? That's what Jeter brought me the other night. He said, Aaron Boone, what are you doing? 88 pitches, taking your best guy out of the game. I thought he's been good. I think Big Poppy's been very good. Those guys add something to the broadcast that I think lacks in these pre- and post-game shows sometimes.
Well, and we're looking for insight. We're looking for guys that have done it before. Obviously, David Ortiz, Alex Rodriguez, to whatever extent. He wasn't a very good postseason player, by the way, but they have him sitting there. That's a whole nother discussion about whether he needs to be there because of lack of postseason resume, but also he cheated the game. We know he cheated the game. And you could also make the same argument, by the way, a little bit on David Ortiz, because he was caught up in that whole Balco thing and testing positive, but they weren't really testing and blah, blah, blah. But whatever. I agree with you. The willingness to criticize.
Yeah.
And even in Jeter's case, criticize the Yankees. It's one thing for Ortiz to criticize the Yankees, but for Jeter to be doing it, I agree with you.
Well, that's one thing. In David Ortiz last night, he mentioned Fat Joe. He said the body language was like, this thing's over already. He mentioned that the Yankees never looked like they were into that game. And I said, you know what? He's right. So I think that Ortiz has done a nice job. Now, he's a playful guy. I know he always has the shirt on. He'll rip open. That kind of stuff is, pandering to the crowd. I don't need. But I think Jeter's done a good job of being what the one thing that I've been critical of Brady, it's not that Brady stinks. I mean, he's just okay. You're Tom Brady. You can't just be okay. You're on the number one broadcast team. You replaced a guy who was doing a really good job, so you need to be excellent. And Jeter right now, I think, is giving you great insight.
Love it. All right, so the World Series could be over with as soon as tonight. Will the Yankees extend it to a fifth game? Again, this is worth a ton of money in advertising for Fox if they can get to a fifth game, if not get it back to Los Angeles. They would love to have that for the extra eyeballs, the extra revenue. But for Major League Baseball, this was the best case scenario, obviously, for them to have this matchup. The Dodgers just have other ideas right now. Maybe it's their year and they're about to complete the sweep. And by the way, we did not touch on this. The death of Fernando Valenzuela, who had been calling the Dodger games on Spanish radio for 3 decades since his playing career was over. He died right before this postseason run back a couple of weeks ago. And now they paid tribute to him, and that was all part of the magic of last Friday night. And it was Fernando as part of that clinching Dodger win as a rookie, Mike, in 1981. That's the last time the Dodgers and the Yankees have played, 43 years ago.
Yeah, by the way, it ties into what I want to play the Jeter stuff here, because Fernando pitched game 3 and threw 144 pitches in that game. All right? He pitched game 3 and threw 144 pitches in that game. And here's what Derek Jeter said. And I want to get back to Fernando because he pitched 8 games for my Phillies in the strike-shortened 1994 season. So he does have some ties to our area as well. But he threw 144 pitches in a World Series game, left it all out there. Here's what Jeter said about Garrett Cole.
Yeah, look, I know we talk about this all the time, and I don't want to be one of these guys that say back in the day when we played. But we were talking about when we were playing the Mets in 2000, Al Leiter pitched Game 6. He threw 140-something pitches. 140-something pitches. Garrett Cole was dominating this game. He was dominating the game. Yeah. And if you take him out after 88 pitches for I don't know what reason, it's a domino effect on not only this game tonight, tomorrow's game, and the rest of the series. I just think when you have someone that's dealing like Garrett Cole was dealing tonight, you leave him out there as long as you can.
That is a great breakdown by Jeter there.
Let me give you a great example where you keep using great. 2020 World Series, the Rays and these same Dodgers. Blake Snell is the Rays pitcher. He's dealing. He's pitching a one-hitter going into the 6th inning, and the Rays have to live and die by the analytics Bible that says don't let a guy go through the lineup a 3rd time as the pitcher. They take him out, and the Dodgers were privately elated, and the criticism to this day, Mike, still exists where the Rays had a potential chance to force Game 7 where anything can happen, and they took the pitcher out. And you're great with that stat about Fernando. I didn't realize it was that many pitches, but you can go back all through the 70s, the 80s at guys that were pitching on 3 days rest in the postseason after throwing 130, 140 pitches in a game and coming back 3 days later to pitch again in the postseason.
See, I feel like the analytics are a tool to use for the regular season, but regular season baseball and playoff baseball are different. For you to use the same Bible in the playoffs that you use in the regular season, that is a mistake. You can't go off the same things. You know, all the analytics in the regular season, those are used and they are accumulated by playing the doldrums. You know, that counts when you play Pittsburgh and not Kansas City this year, but Kansas City in the past, and the Cincinnati Reds, and, you know, Colorado Rockies, and the Chicago White Sox. All of the games against them are added into those analytics, which do you no good in a playoff game in October.
Against one team for 5 or 7 games.
So when you're playing in October baseball, you can't use the analytics that got mixed in from a series against the Chicago White Sox that you played in July. It's ridiculous.
Well, and most famously, too, we're now 23 years on since the Diamondbacks beat the Yankees, and who can forget not only Curt Schilling pitching heroically for the Diamondbacks before he ever did with the bloody sock with the Red Sox, but Randy Johnson pitched Game 6, and I want to say through like 130 pitches. He came back and closed the World Series for the Diamondbacks, pitching the 9th inning and I think the 10th inning before Luis Gonzalez, another Tampa guy, won it for the Diamondbacks with the single off Mariano Rivera. He came back and pitched the next night Forget the analytics Bible back in the day. You do what you have to do in the postseason to be able to make it work. So it looks like the Dodgers are going to succeed. Fox has to be somewhat happy with the better audience, just not with the long series unless the Yankees make it a longer series. We'll see. Do you want to move on to football next? Do you want to move on?
I want to get into one thing into football. We'll transition like this because we talked about this on my daily on Friday. I liked what Fox did with the Yankee game, Dodger game 1 on Friday night, and it went into Rutgers USC. Now, that game on Friday night didn't end till almost midnight on the East Coast here, but Austin Karp tweeted this out. Rutgers USC, Friday night on Fox. It started 56 minutes after kickoff due to the extra inning World Series game. It drew 2 million people with a midnight start for that college football game, Rutgers USC. So that game worked, I think, for Fox.
They made the best out of it because, again, they were trying to show that as a standalone situation, and they knew it was in Los Angeles. And now here you have the World Series in Los Angeles as kind of the lead-in for that. And you're always looking for the good games, and that kind of segues. I mean, like Saturday afternoon, Alabama wiped out Missouri on the national ABC game for college. We're talking about Oregon wiped out Illinois the same way. No contest on CBS. So if you don't have good games, that's going to hurt you too with keeping the audience, especially when you got so many more choices that are out there. So I don't know that the ratings are in yet for those games. The primetime games was LSU, Texas A&M on ABC. NBC had the Big Ten, Wisconsin, Penn State game won by Penn State on the road. And I'm trying to remember what Fox had in primetime themselves, and it's not coming to me. It was a Big 12 game of some kind.
Yeah.
But I can't believe that did very well, any of those games against the World Series, because the World Series was going head-to-head on Big Fox. Fox had an FS1 game that was going on. But the Yankees-Dodgers game 2, I think, probably easily beat the college football head-to-head on Saturday night when those ratings come in.
Well, we've got a couple. The ABC triple header, 3 of the 5 most watched games. Alabama, 5.7 million viewers on average. LSU, A&M, 5.1.
Okay, but let's stop right there. Let's stop right there. So the 5.5 million for Alabama, the second straight week, is 5 million less than the Tennessee game, and the 5 million-ish for A&M and LSU is 8 million less than the previous week with Georgia and Texas. And I think the World Series is a big part of that. And they knew that was coming, right, Mike? They knew that the Yankees-Dodgers is going to take a chunk out of their primetime audience for that LSU-Texas A&M game. And Notre Dame's solid there at noon, but we've seen bigger numbers at noon for the game with Navy. But go ahead, your thought.
Last week you had 2 games go over 10 million viewers.
Right.
So, yeah, this got
the primetime Texas-Georgia game had 13 million. So, again, the World Series took away from that Saturday night on Fox as the thing to watch. I find it fascinating. They didn't want to do it Sunday night against Sunday Night NFL. They chose college football for the baseball strategy and the scheduling.
They've been staying away from that Sunday night game if they can, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So they go up against Monday night instead, and I guess they're saying the Sunday night schedule is a better schedule than the Monday night schedule, and then they're choosing to go Friday nights to start the World Series now.
Interesting. Again, if you're just joining us, that's the voice of Mike Gill. Find him at the Mike Gill Show on Twitter. The Sports Bash is his radio show. And you can find me at Buck Sideline Guy, BUC, Buck Sideline Guy. We got the live video stream going on Tuesday afternoon. If you're only hearing us on the podcast, come see what we look like. Go to Mike's YouTube page and see what we look like, Mike Gill Show YouTube page. See what the podcast in living color looks like here on the show while we're talking. So that segues us. Well, actually, you have a little more ratings info that's out now here on this Tuesday about the Fox College coverage.
Yeah, this is Ohio State, Florida State. Good game, 21-17 on Fox. This was the big noon Saturday, 5.9 million. I mean, they've got to be happy. Peaked at 9 million viewers towards the end, 315 to 330.
Because Nebraska was on the verge of maybe upsetting Ohio State. And now this week, how does that bode? It's big noon again, and you talked about this, Penn State, Ohio State. Are we looking at maybe 8-9 million for that game, maybe 10 million? It's one of the marquee games of the end of the season here with both of them in the top 5. You have a ratings prediction thought based on what we just saw there with Ohio State, Nebraska numbers in the same slot?
Well, yeah. I mean, you got Penn State right now 2 versus 3. I believe these two teams are going to be 2 and 3 meeting up against each other. That game there, almost 9 million viewers towards the end of the game. And if Penn State, one of their problems has been they have not been able to beat Ohio State or Michigan. Now they're the higher-rated team for the first time in this series in the James Franklin era, I think. So if Penn State can have a lead or make this interesting, you could get that Philadelphia market push, which is not a big college football market, but they'll jump on board when there's a good team. And when Penn State's good, you can get that Philly market to jump on board, and that could, yes, push those ratings up pretty well.
All right. Again, we rock along. By the way, we should just make mention our sponsor, Ticket Smarter, and the Ticket Smarter mobile app. If you're trying to go to that Penn State, Ohio State game, any of these games, the World Series games, the NFL matchups, use Ticket Smarter. Use our promo code LWOS20. That saves you $20 off a $300 or more order. Doesn't matter how many times you use it, but you got to spend at least $300. Mike, you're not going to get the better seats at any of these games, a pair of them for under $300 for the better college or NFL games, much less the World Series. What did I see? That for game 2, Dodgers behind home plate, $17,000 a ticket. I don't know what it was going for at Yankee Stadium, but game 2 Saturday night was $17,000 on the secondary market for a single ticket. So I don't know how much $20 would help you in that instance, but use the promo code LWOS20 for Ticket Smarter. Best prices on the secondary market. Purchase safe and secure. Ticket Smarter mobile app. Get in the game with Ticket Smarter. What else? Oh,
right,
ratings in for the NFL. Let's go there.
Sunday night, you got 23-9, almost 24 million viewers for a Dallas comeback, falling short against the 49ers. And this one is the most watched Week 8 game on record.
Well, and bear in mind that usually the late Sunday afternoon game seems to do better. That number was better than the Commanders' Hail Mary win over the Chicago Bears. That was the national CBS game for that game. So I'm curious, but yeah, it was a good game. Again, it's Dallas. Dallas brings 3 to 5 million more eyeballs. I know you're searching right now as we do the show live to see what the Sunday number with that Hail Mary call by Jim Nantz with Tony Romo of Commanders defeating the Bears. I don't know if CBS has that number out, but it would not surprise me if that Cowboy number was maybe better than Commanders Bears, even though that was the national game, because not every market, by the way, got that game on CBS. You had the Chiefs and the Raiders also playing on CBS, and I believe there was a third game that was also playing late in the afternoon on CBS. So not every market had, a lot of them did, but not every market had Commanders Bears for that. So we'll try to find that number though as well. But look, the Cowboys are always a draw. The question is, Mike, are they going to continue to be a draw here? If they continue to lose and maybe Mike McCarthy gets fired, is that going to take some of the punch out of the Cowboy ratings and the Cowboy numbers? What do you think?
You know, every time you think that people would fall off, on them, I for whatever reason, now the NFC is starting to slip away from them. They are starting to fade a bit in the NFC. I mean, over the years, they have been disappointing, but the NFC has kind of kept them in. I think as long as that they can reach a playoff possibility, they'll stay in, the ratings. Look, they're never going to have bad ratings. I mean, they have so many people from coast to coast that follow them. I'm looking now at the Bears, by the way, and I don't see a number on the Bears.
I don't think it's up yet on the Bears Commanders, but they got the best possible exciting finish with the Hail Mary throw by Jaden Daniels. Amazing. Amazing how social media, by the way, can almost enhance or make it even better. Because the fans in the stands that showed the Bears player Tyreek Stevenson, you saw this, Mike, mugging with the Bears fans in the crowd, taunting the Commanders fans while the play's going on behind him. And Stevenson turns around and runs over, and he's the guy that tipped the ball to the Commander who catches it in the end zone. What an idiotic thing. But here's the advent that everybody's a reporter now. Everybody's got a phone. Everybody's got media and social media capability to put it on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter X and put it out there. there were millions and millions of views of those videos of what happened at the end of that game as well. It just shows you the popularity and the prominence of the National Football League. Can we do one thing, though? Can I share this? Can I vent for just a minute on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast?
The Buccaneers. Real quick, I got one more. Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. This is John Lewis, Sports Media Watch. 12.6 million on Amazon.
So that audience is slipping some the last couple of weeks on Thursday night on the streaming on Amazon Prime for that. But in the Buccaneers-Falcons game, this has to do with technology and broadcasting the game. The Buccaneers had a play in the game that would not have won them the game. It's in the first half. There's a long way to go. Where Kyle Pitts, the Atlanta receiver, catches a pass, and the ball at the goal line is being knocked out by Antoine Winfield Jr. of the Buccaneers, and they did not have a good enough replay. And Mike, they did not have the pylon cams in either end zone. This is the Fox number 2 crew, and they don't have the pylon cams there to give us a good look that the ball was in fact out. Now I'm going to show the video audience that's watching us a local Fox sports reporter and cameraman was on the 1-yard line. He got a great view right there of the ball being out. A still of his video shows Antoine Winfield knocking the ball out. They didn't have that view on the broadcast on Fox. The NFL Command Center didn't have that view. And so the call on the field stood as a touchdown when it should not have. My point is it should be mandatory. It's inexcusable right now that it's not mandatory. The NFL should order all of these networks. Look, the Amazon Prime production crew, the Sunday night crew on NBC, the Monday night crew on ESPN ABC, they're always going to have the pylon cams because that's the one game they're doing. But for CBS and Fox, for all the other games, they should pay for that technology to be there at every stadium. Mike, your thought, because I've laid it out there, it's inexcusable not to have it when you have the technology and you have the money to have it right now, and that call was blown.
Yeah, well, listen, if you have the technology, you have to have the technology. You can't have it on one game and not all the games because every game has to be on the same playing field. You can't say that the Sunday night game is a more important outcome potentially than the Buccaneers-Falcons game. That game has NFC North or South implications, and you're saying that game's not as important because it's on a lesser network crew. That's unacceptable.
Well, like the other game was Carolina-Denver on CBS late Sunday. So that game doesn't warrant pylon cams because we've just decided that with the networks. And I'll bring it back to you're in an NBA market. In the NBA, in every arena, both ends of the floor has the technology for the shot clock and the game clock and the red light on the backboard. They have to have it in every arena at both ends of the floor. In the NHL, there's the goal line camera technology above the goal in both ends of the arena, above both goals. They don't say in the NHL because the game is in Winnipeg or in San Jose or in Carolina that we don't have to have the goal line technology. In the NBA, we don't say because it's in Sacramento or New Orleans or Minneapolis that we don't have to have the shot clock technology. We got to have the pylon cam, Mike. That's all I'm saying. We got to have the pylon cam.
If one has it, they all have to have it. One can't be more important than another.
Sure.
Yeah.
Where you're having multiple looks. And I realize you have to understand for the audience that the Monday night game, the CBS or Fox number 1 game, the NBC Sunday night game, or the Amazon Prime game, it has more cameras, more replay looks than some of the other games have. We're not talking about more cameras than, we're talking about no pylon cam for some of the games, and you can't have that. Not in the NFL. So I think we're in agreement on that. That's one of those things that's got to come from the league to the TV partners. You're paying for this. The technology is not that expensive. You're paying for the licensing to use those pylon cams at all the games. Get it worked out. What else in our remaining moments? What else do you have here on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast, Mike Gill? Something else to get off your chest. What else you got?
I don't know if it's to get off my chest. I did see Ian Eagle's going to be the NBA play-by-player for Amazon Prime, it looks like. So these NBA teams are getting set for next year when
I was going to say next year.
When TNT is out and NBC is in, you're going to have Mike Tirico and Noah Eagle on NBC. Looks like Ian Eagle is going to be the play-by-play, or at least one of them, when you talk about Amazon Prime.
How many games are they getting a week? Do they get a couple of games on different nights a week, or is it a game of the week, or do we know on Amazon Prime? Because Turner was typically getting a couple of games a week, right?
I think. Don't quote me on this yet. I want to say they're going to be on Thursdays like they are for football, and it's just going to kind of be after the football season. They're going to just go into Thursday night NBA.
Because ESPN a lot of the time has Wednesday and Friday right now. I don't know if that's going to remain. And NBC was traditionally always on Sunday on weekends. I have to believe they're going to be a weekend, or maybe they're going to get a weeknight. I don't know if they're going to choose to do that on NBC. It's probably just going to be weekends for NBC, I would think.
Yeah, the NBC used to be Sunday at 3:30 was the old NBC
Sundays.
game.
Right.
So
we'll see what they elect to do. All right, you got announcers for this week.
Yeah, with the old announcers schedules pod. Shout out to our boy Phil.
Yes.
We're keeping that going for you, Phil. Here we go. Adam Amin, Greg Olson, they got the Cowboy-Falcon game. Chris Myers, Mark Sanchez on Commanders-Giants, the old NFC East rivalry there. Raiders-Bengals, Kevin Kugler, Darryl Johnson. This is the Fox teams, by the way. Benetti, Schlereth on Patriots-Titans. And then they have the game of the week with Burkhardt, Brady, and that crew. That's Lions-Packers. That's a good game in the NFC North. Kenny Albert, Jonathan Vilma, they get the other 425 regional game, Rams and the Seahawks there. So Burkhardt, Brady, and crew, Lions, Packers. They got a stinker of a game last week, Burkhardt and Brady.
But the interesting thing is a lot of the country did not see it because there were so many Fox 1 o'clock games and there was not a doubleheader on Fox. So again, if you have the Sunday ticket on YouTube TV, you were seeing it. If you have the Red Zone channel and they were dipping in, but you're right. There was only one game, I believe, on Fox in the late window last week, and that was mainly in the West and in Buffalo, the Bills clobbering the Seahawks. So they weren't on all over the country. And then for CBS, this is their single header week. What's the announcers lineup look like?
Yes, you got Nance and Romo, not with a great game. I mean, but the Broncos, I guess, they're in the playoff mix right now.
They're improved.
Yes, and Baltimore lost last week. So you got Baltimore, Denver. That's Nance and Romo. An AFC East here, Dolphins and Bills with Kevin Harlan and Trent Green. Chargers, Browns, Spiro and Adam Archuleta. The Saints, Carolina game. My Lord, poor Tom McCarthy and Jay Feely. And usually Ross Tucker is on that crew as well, but he is not on that one. Tom McCarthy is in my market as the Phillies play-by-player. He also does a lot of Westwood One college stuff. You got Bears and Cardinals. Cardinals are in first place in the NFC West. That's Ian Eagle and Charles Davis.
So,
and in my market here, I'll get Andrew Catalan and Tiki Barber and Jason McCourty for Eagles-Jaguars. That, remember, was the game that was supposed to be Sunday night. It got flexed out. Let me ask you. If you're Sunday night, would you rather Eagles-Jaguars with Doug Peterson coming back to Philly or this Colts-Vikings game that they took?
Yeah, and again, they kind of went quickly there because the Vikings at that time were undefeated a couple of weeks ago. The Colts looked like they were on the rise. Now the Colts are a mess. Maybe they regret it. I go back to that graphic one more time. It is interesting, though, that for the two late games for CBS, that Bears-Cardinals will probably be on maybe a couple of Western markets, but primarily Chicago and Phoenix. And then the other game, Jacksonville and Philadelphia, is probably only on in Jacksonville and Philadelphia for the late afternoon because everybody else is taking one of those early games in their market with the CBS single header. Most of the country's obviously going to see Ravens and Broncos as the number one early game all over the country. So if maybe a decent matchup there, although the Jaguars have all their receivers hurt, I don't know how good a game that's going to be with the Eagles. Eagles might thump them in Peterson's return, the former Super Bowl coach. But I think that's probably only on in Jacksonville and Philadelphia. We'll shout out, 506 Sports?
Yeah, I got that up on my screen right here, actually.
Do they have all the maps? Are you able to show us what the late window has? I bet it's only Jacksonville, Philadelphia, and only Chicago and Phoenix for those games. Probably.
Yeah, they haven't updated the map. What do we got? Week 9 coming up. Yeah, we don't have the week 9
yet. Is not there, but I would surmise that is the case. And then obviously the Sunday night game, as you mentioned, is Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth, and company, where Minnesota's now lost back-to-back games. And the whole Anthony Richardson, I'm too tired to play for the Colts last week in the game with the Texans. He took himself out of the game as the quarterback. That's your Sunday night game. And then I will be part of the Monday night game before you and I are back next Tuesday on Election Day, by the way. The Monday night game with Joe Buck, Troy Aikman is the Chiefs and my Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Kansas City. My shorthanded Buccaneers have got to figure some things out. So we'll be part of that whole circus at Arrowhead Stadium next Monday night. I'll have to report back on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. Anything else that we have not covered? We've been here a little bit. Anything else that we have not covered? The NBA has started up so far this year. I have not caught Mike Breen with Richard Jefferson and Doris Burke yet on the number one crew call. That's the new analyst with Breen and Burke. And by the way, Mike, they've made it clear it's not definitely just him. They may rotate a couple of other people, right?
Yes, I have heard that, and I heard them do the Sixers the other night. I like Jefferson. He adds a little excitement. I got to hear more of him, but I do think he has an exciting sound to him, and he's different. He's knowledgeable. He's different. He's not dry. He is entertaining, and I think that, his entertaining, and Doris, they have a nice, play off of each other. I think as they get more time together, Richard's a little playful kind of guy. I think he can pull more personality out of Doris, so I'm kind of looking forward to seeing some more of that pairing. I do have a couple more ratings that I could throw your way before we get out of here. Michigan State, 1.7 on the Big Ten Network. We've got Penn State, Wisconsin. That was that NBC. That was their primetime game, 3.5. And then Illinois, Oregon, number one team in the country, 2.7.
Wow.
Oklahoma, Ole Miss, 2.6 on ESPN. Illinois, Oregon with CBS. You're seeing the Big Ten games on CBS are not doing what the SEC games are doing on ABC.
That game surprises me. I was way wrong on that, and I think it's because the game was a blowout in the first half that they just got no audience. If they had a closer, better game, I'm just saying this, I think it had a chance to have some audience because the Alabama game was not a close game on ABC at the same time. So that surprises me. It was that little for CBS, but CBS did get like 6 million for the Ohio State game that they had a couple of weeks ago with Iowa. And they hope to have a bigger audience, obviously, for one of these games down the stretch of the season. But clearly it's not the same as the SEC ratings across the board. Other than that, are we good with the takes here on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast? We gave you a lot of meat on the bone here.
Well, I do a 4-hour radio show every day that I'm getting ready to go on the air in about a half an hour. But I could give you 4 hours of this stuff, man. This is like stuff that I just could go on and on and on about. But, man, there's so many things. You got big hockey day, by the way, if you're a hockey fan, Tuesday. Last week they had the whole day where hockey staggered their starts by about 10 minutes or so. It's crazy time. You got yesterday was the sports equinox. You got the MLS, by the way. I had my conversation with Kevin Egan. Check that out. On Friday's Daily. He was great. If you're an MLS fan, he does that MLS 360 whip around show, and he talks about the evolution of MLS on Apple Plus and how they kind of handle it and the graphics and how that's added to everything. Messi, what he's meant to the league. So full disclosure, I don't watch any MLS. I've been to a game. I talked to Kevin about it. I did not know who Kevin was in terms of MLS. I remember him from WWE.
As a wrestling announcer. Right.
Yes, he spent some time there. But I encourage you MLS fans, go listen to that conversation with Kevin Egan. It's on the podcast feed, Last Word on Sports Media.
Because this is their playoffs right now. So if you want to hear Kevin Egan talk about MLS and their playoffs, they're now in the throes of those playoffs, October through the first part of December. This is when it wraps up.
And yes, they finished their season December the 7th. I remember 2 years ago, they played their championship game on the same day as Game 6 of the World Series because the Philadelphia Union were in the finals, and the Philadelphia Phillies played the Astros on the same day. That was November 2nd, 2022. Now their season's extended all the way out. They have new playoffs, and that was really good. So it's crazy. By the way, college basketball, I saw you this afternoon, my man Jeff Nadeau doing the show. So college basketball is back, and I'm calling a college basketball game.
Oh, really?
ESPN Plus on Friday. I got a doubleheader.
Awesome.
Temple, Monmouth, and Princeton, Duquesne.
How about that? So Mike is doing ESPN Plus Friday. Catch me talking college basketball daily on the BetUS platforms, BetUS's YouTube channel for handicapping. You will not find Monday through Friday, a more extensive, expansive college basketball breakdown show than what we do on BetUS TV every day at 11 a.m. Eastern time. BetUS, thank you for the plug. Their YouTube page, it's crazy. So much media to consume. We try to tidy it up here on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. Mike Gill, great job with this once again here for a Tuesday. We'll do it again soon, my friend.
All right, TJ, and don't forget the daily to tomorrow, Wednesday. I will have that. You'll be back on Thursday, and I'll have the Friday daily here on Last Word on Sports
We
Media.
love it. Follow, subscribe to this podcast feed, Apple, Spreaker, Spotify, if you're only hearing us. Come see us on social media or YouTube with the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. Bye.